Sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Welp. Here we go again. Ants. Yes, the very first DreamWorks movie is Ants. I mean, who even remembers this movie anyway? Its entire purpose was probably just to compete with Pixar's A Bug's Life. That being said, I still think that this movie's not all that bad. Here's a quick summary. There's this ant called Z in an ant colony who's a worker ant. But Z doesn't want to be a worker ant. He wants to become like the Chad soldier ant because he wants to impress this princess girl. So then he decides to go to war, somehow survive the war, and then kidnaps the princess. Pretty bold, you might be thinking, but keep in mind this guy's a huge incel. They then find a picnic with some very not so subtle product placement. Fast forward to the end of the movie and they return back to the ant colony where everyone literally almost drowns and then Z saves them. Z ends up with the princess and the end. Honestly, for a first movie, this was kind of horrible. I mean, imagine the balls on someone to create a whole ass animation studio just to copy a movie. C tier. How in God's name is this a DreamWorks movie? I honestly forgot for a second while watching this that this is the same company responsible for the goddamn Boss Baby. The Prince of Egypt is undeniably one of DreamWorks' greatest movies. It follows the story of Moses from the Bible freeing the Hebrews from slavery, which indeed means that this movie is canon to the Christ cinematic universe and also the Bible. And I mean, I just love that book. I even have a signed copy. Anyway, so the movie starts and shows us a bunch of Hebrew slaves rushing to hide their infants as a pharaoh orders on infanticide, which is basically the killing of all infant babies so as to reduce population. Whoa, when I thought that Finding Nemo had a dark start, this movie takes the cake. So Moses' mother releases Moses into the river in hopes that he could return to free the Hebrews. Years later, Moses, now part of the royal family of Egypt, finds out the dark truth behind where he came from, and the fact that he was indeed adopted.
You're adopted.
He then runs away and starts a new life before being called upon by God to go free his people. He goes back to try to reason with his brother, King Ramses, but to no avail. So he instead brings 10 plagues upon Egypt and commits mass infanticide, killing Ramses' son in the process. Moses then leads the freed slaves to the Red Sea, but then gets pursued by King Ramses and his men. But with the power of God and anime on his side, Moses splits the water in half, crosses the sea, and then closes it down to the rest of the Egyptians. The end. All in all, this movie had no right to go this hard. Everything was just perfect. The music, the animation, the story, the raw emotional damage. Literally everything is executed so well. Easy S tier. Alright, this is one of the best DreamWorks movies I've ever seen. Prior to making this video, I had never actually watched The Road to El Dorado, but my god do I not regret watching it. This movie is about these two con men, Tulio and Miguel, who receive a map to the legendary ancient city of El Dorado, which roughly translates to the City of Gold. So then Tulio and Miguel travel there and then get escorted by the town's high priest and a bunch of the locals, who for some reason think that they're gods after a volcano coincidentally erupts. So now with the whole town fooled, Tulio and Miguel live like gods before deciding to leave with all the gold. Tulio falls in love with this girl called Chell who helps them pretend to be gods. But then the town leader guy finds out the truth behind Tulio and Miguel. You know, the fact that they're literally just random people pretending to be gods. So then he tries to kill them, fails, and then tries to kill them again, and then fails again. Eventually, Tulio, Miguel, and Chell leave El Dorado and search for their next adventure. Honestly, my summary of this movie does not do it justice. This movie is absolutely hilarious and I feel like the humor still lands today. I highly recommend this one. A tier. But first, sponsor time. Alright, let's do this one last time. My name is Dave Davidson. Once a professional surfer, I was bitten by a radioactive shark. And for the past 10 years, I've been the one and only Surfshark Man. Through my several years of being this city's protector, I have faced many challenges such as dangerous hackers trying to extort money from innocent people. Ooh, not good. Cookies trying to steal private information. Whoa, how dare they? Region locked shows and content. Free Family Guy funny moments for everyone. Yay, Surfshark Man! Let's go, Surfshark! Yeah. But that's not all. Because if you use today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN, you get access to over 3,000 different servers across 100 countries. Ads blocked, viruses blocked, and your money well spent. So if you don't click the link in the description to get Surfshark VPN for 3 months free, then I'm gonna blow up a hospital. That's not a joke. The bombs are already in place and only you can stop the dying patients from surfing their last shark. Get Surf Shark quick! Get it now! Hurry now! Get it! Chicken Run is a masterful movie. Somehow the stop motion in this movie has aged so well that it still holds up almost 23 years later. So Chicken Run is about a bunch of chickens trying to escape an egg farm, which, let's be honest, is basically a gulag. The main character is this chicken called Ginger, who makes all these elaborate escape plans only for them to be thwarted by the owners of the chicken farm, Mr. and Mrs. Tweedy. Until this American rooster, voiced by Mel Gibson, lands inside the gulag. Ginger is then amazed by his apparent ability to fly and asks him to teach her and the rest of the chickens how so that they could escape. Although plot twist, he lied all along and didn't actually know how to fly. The scene where she finds out the truth still kinda gives me goosebumps to this day. It was actually done so well. Anyway, so with that plan being thrown out of the window, the new plan was just to build an airplane. But then plot twist again, Mrs. Tweedy gets on the airplane and kills Ginger. But then another plot twist, she misses and cuts herself off and falls inside of her own factory. The chickens all escape and everyone lives happily ever after aside from Mrs. Tweedy, who literally gets crushed by a door in the end. Editor's note, Mrs. Tweedy actually survives according to the new trailer, which recently dropped at the time of recording this. Overall, this movie was pretty good. My only complaint is that the story in this movie doesn't really feel all that fleshed out, and I could kinda see the twist of the rooster guy not being able to fly from a mile away. But other than that, this was a pretty fun watch. Aardman Studios is still undeniably goated. A tier. I absolutely adore this movie. Just like an onion, it has so many wonderful layers to it. I mean, it's Shrek. This is literally an animated classic great enough to rival the greats like Pulp Fiction and Interstellar. So Shrek is about this guy called Shrek who goes on a quest to rescue a princess so that he could get a swamp back from this guy who kinda looks like Markiplier. Anyways, I'm pretty sure you guys know how the rest of this movie goes. He rescues Fiona, Fiona turns out to be an ogre, Markiplier dies, and the end. If you still haven't seen this movie, which I'm certain you probably have, you need to watch this right now. This is pretty much the equivalent of a feature-length shitpost. I guess the only thing I didn't like about Shrek was that the pacing kind of slowed down in the second act of the movie a bit. But other than that, this movie is hilarious and absolutely unapologetic in its humor. S tier. If I'm gonna be honest, I had never heard of this movie prior to making this video, and judging this movie by its cover before watching it, yeah, I thought it was gonna be complete trash. But surprisingly, it's not actually that bad. This movie's about this horse called Spirit who doesn't talk but has sort of a disconnected voice for his conscience, voiced by Matt Damon. He gets captured by a bunch of Americans and pretty much decides to partake in some tomfoolery by leading an entire goddamn horse revolution and escaping, before being captured again by this Native American guy. Eventually, he gets set free, gets captured again, gets set free again, and then gets chased by the Americans, who eventually just give up after realizing that they didn't want to get beaten up by the same horse twice in a row. And so Spirit returns home and the end. Overall, I feel like this movie was actually good. The plot was simple whilst not being too boring, and the message of this movie is about not letting anyone enslave you and fighting for freedom. I'll give it a B tier. Sinbad was a pretty disappointing movie for me. It's not even like this was a bad movie, it was kinda alright. I was just completely underwhelmed once the credits rolled because the ending was so anticlimactic. So Sinbad is about this pirate thief guy called Sinbad. He and his crew get framed for stealing some mystical book from a kingdom that was apparently actually stolen by the goddess of discord. But then Sinbad's friend saves him from getting executed, and if they don't get the book, he literally dies. So the goddess of discord or whatever tells Sinbad that if he answers her question truthfully, he gets the book, but if he lies, then he doesn't get the book. And the question was pretty much, if you don't get the book, would you return to the kingdom and die, or would you run away instead? Sinbad says that he would return, he gets called out for lying, and he doesn't get the book. Boo-hoo, now the movie's over, but nope. Sinbad returns to the kingdom at the last second, proving the goddess of discord wrong, and he gets the magic book in the end, which I thought was a stupid ending. I mean, like, I saw that coming from a mile away. Whatever this man answered to the question, he would have gotten the book anyway. This question is stupid. So yeah, Sinbad is pretty Sinbad. The ending is really my only complaint with the whole movie though. It was just so anticlimactic and unsatisfying, especially with there not being really a final climax to the movie. All the problems just get solved automatically. It's like the writers just gave up halfway through. I mean, at least the animation looks decent, but other than that, this is probably a C tier movie. Shrek 2 is a godsend of a movie. I'm sure it's probably no surprise to you when I say that I enjoyed this movie way more than Shrek 1. This, Toy Story 2, and Madagascar 2 are pretty much perfect sequels in every way. Shrek 2 follows right after Shrek 1, with Shrek and Fiona on their honeymoon. But then they get invited by Fiona's parents to their castle. They eventually get there, but then it's revealed that this was all planned by the fairy godmother and her son, Prince Charming, to try and arrange a marriage between Charming and Fiona. The next morning, Shrek encounters Puss in Boots, who was sent there to kill him, but accidentally spills the beans that Fiona's dad Harold had sent him to kill Shrek. So then Shrek steals a happily ever after potion, which gives him the greatest glow up probably in animation history. Oh wait. So then Shrek and his noble steed head to the castle, only to find out that Prince Charming had taken Shrek's place. Fast forward a bit and Shrek gets arrested before the royal ball starts. But then he gets rescued by the gang from Shrek 1 using Pinocchio's nose.
Tell a lie! I'm wearing ladies' underwear.
Are you?
Embarrassing!
And this right here is when the greatest scene in DreamWorks animation history happens. That of course being the holding out for a hero scene. Take note, Illumination. This is how you use holding out for a hero. Shrek gets in the castle riding a giant gingerbread which later dies. Rest in peace, you will be remembered. Puss repays his debt and Harold redeems himself by sacrificing himself at the last second, leading Shrek and Fiona to finally have a happily ever after. Overall, this movie is pretty much Shrek 1 but 10 times better and probably DreamWorks at its peak. The jokes all also land extremely well.
I hate Mondays.
S tier.